afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Rural Crime Channel. It's Richard Wade. Very, very pleased to have you here joining us today. This is going to be live. In a moment, I'm going to introduce my guest to you, which I'm really excited about, actually, and I'll explain why in a moment. But before we do that, this is being broadcast onto LinkedIn, and it's being broadcast onto the Rural Crime and Farm Safety YouTube channel at the same time. So you feel free to join us from any of those. We have the ability, in the bottom of my little screen here is a chat bot. So if you have any questions or you wish to make any comments as we go through our little discussion today, then by all means, type them into your browser, either on YouTube or LinkedIn, and they'll appear on my screen here, and I'll proofread them, and if they're appropriate, I'll bring them into the screen and we can engage in a little bit of conversation. This live stream is not going to be too long, maybe 15 minutes or so, but it's a really, really important subject. And you can see in the top left-hand corner of the screen there, RiTA. And what I want to do is bring someone onto our screen in a moment to talk about RiTA and explain what it's all about and why it's so important. If I asked you today, on a sheet of paper, write down a list of things that you associate with rural crime, I'm guessing the topic that we're going to talk about in a moment with our guest wouldn't be one of them. You would probably talk about theft of equipment and livestock and fuel and people breaking into properties and nicking GPS units off the tops of the tractors. Thank you for those joining us live now. We can see that you've joined us. I'll reiterate what I said about joining in a moment. But you might not think about adding to your list abuse, domestic abuse in the rural environment. And we're going to bring in our guest now. So bear with me 1 second. Let's click to this little screen here. And it is an absolute pleasure to introduce Judith to you. Judith, good afternoon. Welcome to the Rural Crime Channel. But before we start, I want to say a big thank you, because I've been following closely the work that you've been doing, and in particular this week, Rural Crime Action Week, and I've been looking at the posts that have been going up, and I think this is a subject that it needs airing, and I can't wait to hear what you've got to say and give you a platform for the messages that you want to get out. As we go on here, Judith, we've got people watching us now live. I can see the numbers in the top corner of my screen. And I just want to reiterate to those people that if they want to engage with us, I'll open up the chat here now. Those of you watching, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you want to type any questions or any comments into your little browser, feel free, and they'll appear here, and I'll bring them onto the screen and we can get them into the general discussion. So, Judith, I think it would be a great starting point for you to explain what is RiTA and who is Judith?
Oh, well, thank you, Rich, for this opportunity and the platform. And it is fantastic to join you and to get the opportunity to talk about a subject that people don't really want to talk about, particularly in rural areas. So who am I? So I'm Judith Vickress. I grew up in Shropshire on a farm, youngest of 8. Lots of classic sort of farming household, I think, and went away for a while to university, very long time ago, sadly. And you don't need the potted history is basically I got into working with survivors of domestic abuse, and did that directly for many years, and then started to work with national organisations around the strategic approach and more around sort of government policy and things like that. So basically sort of 25 years have gone, I don't really know how, and wow. I now live back in rural Herefordshire, not far from Shropshire, and worked with survivors across this region as well 15 years ago. So 2 years ago, I was awarded a Churchill Fellowship, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But effectively, what I learned from that when I came back here was there's a real gap here for an organisation that is dedicated to rural survivors. We've effectively neglected the rurality and the impact of rurality on survivors and of domestic abuse, all those victims of domestic abuse who've lost their lives, unfortunately, and actually too very close to where I live. So I think all of that sort of combined made me set up RiTA, and so Rural Initiatives Tackling Abuse. And yeah, what I want to do with that is really just raise the status of rural communities and survivors navigating the what they're experiencing and their lack of kind of support and services, and the lack of acknowledgement and recognition that they're there in policy, strategies, research, everything really.
Yeah, we'll come on to those shortly. I'm guessing, you know, rural in particular, what are the specific factors? They're going to make, they're quite unique, aren't they? Does it exacerbate the issues of people reaching out when they become perhaps a victim? What would you like to say around that area?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of additional challenges that survivors who live in rural areas do face, but I guess if I were to pick out one that came through loud and clear from talking to survivors, but also leading experts across the world, actually, States, Canada, and Australia, where I visited, was the social isolation. So we talk about geographic isolation, lack of transport accessibility, and that absolutely is an issue. But what we hear loud and strong is that the traditional values that still very strongly exist within rural communities, agricultural communities included, do tend to isolate victim survivors because they are unable to seek help, to talk out, to sort of help other people understand what they're experiencing. And that social isolation is one of the sort of biggest factors that makes victim survivors stay quiet and stay within a relationship with an abuser for much, much longer than we would see in urban areas.
What an horrific cycle that must be for the victim, you know, lonely, isolated anyway, given you know, given the rural environment, and then added into the mix that horrific abuse potentially that's being perpetrated. It must be an awful situation. What needs to be done? What initiatives, what strategies, what do we need to be looking at and lobbying for to make that better for the current victims and potential victims?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, to be honest, Rich. I think starting really with that identification and acknowledgement that this happens in rural areas. You said exactly what I've kind of been thinking all week, and you know why some of the posts that are coming out on LinkedIn from RiTA are domestic abuse is a crime, coercive controlling behaviour is a crime, but it's not listed in any strategies, police crime commissioning strategies, and we certainly haven't seen it listed in any list of rural crimes this week. So we need to acknowledge that it's a crime, that it happens in rural areas, that rural survivors have different needs, they have different challenges, and they have, we know that perpetrators of abuse will use isolation, geographic and social isolation, as a weapon. So they weaponize rurality to further control their victim survivor. So I think we need to raise awareness. We need to break down that stigma of being able to talk about abuse. It's very difficult for some people in the rural area that I live. People just seem to think it doesn't happen here. Or it's like, oh no, that can't possibly happen here. We would know. No, you don't. And maybe it's a bit tunnel vision. We're not looking, we're not seeing. So that's raising that awareness so that people can talk about it. And if we break the silence that is weaponized by those who choose to use abuse, then we take away one of their weapons, we take away one of their great big weapons. And so if we keep talking about that, it will be happening 3 doors away, you know, it's going to be happening everywhere. And I think so that's one of the big things. And then just on the sort of wider, more long-term thing is thinking about how we get government to think about it. We get police crime commissioners, all commissioners, local authority to be, you know, does this strategy, does this policy work for our area? And our area is predominantly, the country's predominantly rural.
Yeah.
Does it work for those people who cannot access services or who are living within those traditional cultures, of which rurality is one? How do we reach them, and are we doing enough for those survivors too?
Yeah, I get that. That's so important. Give me an idea of the differences then between, let's say, an urban environment and someone who's suffering domestic abuse in that environment versus the rural environment. So if I'm in an urban city type environment, what typically can I get access to? So what help is available there that perhaps isn't available so readily in the countryside?
So they might be able to, they're more likely to be able to access specialist services that may be in an easy bus ride to. So buses that are every 15, 20 minutes, as opposed to buses that are twice a day in a rural place. So, or in fact, walking distance. They will more likely be able to, if this is the case, that they want to leave that property or they have to leave to stay safe, that they will be able to access housing or temporary accommodation or refuge even that is not too far away from where they are currently living, because they may want to stay within their city or their borough if we're talking about London. And I think in rural areas, if you're trying to flee domestic abuse and it is, you know, you want to leave, phoning a helpline, you know, and I used to sort of work on a helpline, you can get maybe a place in a refuge that is 25, 30 miles away. You may not want to go there. You know, temporary accommodation may again be in a city, but finding temporary accommodation in a village setting, if you've never lived anywhere but rurally, it's extremely difficult to move to that urban environment or even a large town environment. So we're not thinking about the needs of victim survivors. We're thinking about, oh, let's just get the best option, cheapest option, and usually that would be in a city.
Yeah, it's absolute nightmare. So your general work then, Judith, who you know, who are you working with and liaising with, you know, in a typical week? What kind of organisations are you working closely with?
So obviously RiTA is only just starting off, and so at the moment we're very much kind of talking to police forces. We're talking to local authorities about how we can support rural proofing, if you like, their needs assessments, their strategies. I do a lot of talking generally, but working with an amazing survivor who's been very much part of the journey for RiTA, Rhiannon Bragg, who has got her own lived experience in North Wales and understands rurality, understands the culture, understands the sort of the farming culture, but also the accessibility issues and the isolation. Indeed, when she spoke out about her perpetrator, just fit that sense of isolation from the community who had supported him was difficult, and you know, she really understands that. So that has really helped feed some of the work and planning that we're doing.
Got it. That's brilliant. So it's Rhiannon, did you say?
Yes, Rhiannon Bragg. Yeah.
Perhaps if I just bring this in, let's put me and you down the side there. I didn't want us to miss an opportunity for people to get a good look. We've got quite a few people watching now, so I'd like to just reiterate before we talk about your website, and I'll quickly navigate through and show people certain areas. But thank you for watching. We've got people now. I can't see where you're watching from. You're either on LinkedIn or YouTube, or coming in via a Ouija board perhaps, but thank you for joining us. And you can interact if you type if you want to comment or type a question for Judith here, then just type it into your browser as normal, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, and it will appear on the screen. So feel free to avail yourself of that. Yeah, so I was looking around the website earlier, and I wanted to bring it to everybody else's attention here, Judith, as well, that there's a whole raft of information available online. And the reason I think it's so important for us to talk about this in this particular section is going back to what we've just said. We're at the end now of Rural Crime Action Week. Until this year's Rural Crime Action Week and me finding you on LinkedIn, I didn't know this was such a thing. So I'm guessing, and I work in rural crime, but again, predominantly my focus is like most people's, the theft of this, and people, animal theft and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I was so chuffed when you agreed to come on, that we can raise this awareness in my small way of getting involved and helping to further that sort of message. And that's why I wanted to bring your website in, so everyone can see the lovely RiTA website, Rural Initiatives Tackling Abuse, that you can see on the screen there. And it's quite a compelling read, and it gives stories of survivors, and it gives, more importantly, the people at the bottom here who are offering support to you as an organization, which is great to see the National Rural Crime Network in there as well. But then the bit for me, this bit here, I need help now, and people can click that and decide what the problem is. But then the domestic abuse helpline, that's really, really great. So there's a clear call to action. If you've got an issue like this going on in your life, then there is help out there. And I think, as we're hearing, probably a lot of room for improvement in the rural communities, Judith, but people can access help when they need it. So oh, and by the way, brilliant job, whoever's put that together. So lovely website, lovely, clear, easy to navigate website, and it gives very, very clear information about who you are and your story. And shall we meet the team while we're on?
Oh, we could do. I just say this is a work in progress. It's all a work in progress.
Well, let me say, it's a great work in progress. Seriously, it's very, very crisp, very clear, and easily navigable as well. So it's brilliant. So you got yourself and Emma, and the rest of the team, Nikki, Rhiannon. We've already mentioned Rhiannon.
And then Holly's to be credited with all of the. I had a go at the website building. It's not my natural ability, let's just say. So Holly sorted me out, and she's wonderful.
Is Holly the girl behind all the website and all that kind of stuff, is she?
Yeah, I will take a little bit of credit, because I built something. And she tied it up and then made it work. So she's absolutely.
That's what that is, teamwork in progress. And that's. Are there any areas, before I close that particular bit, Judith? Is there anything that you want me to particularly go to on the website that's
I think for people. Yeah, I think just for people to have a look at the services, and they are just services that we are offering currently, because this is what I understand that is needed, but whatever anybody needs, just to get in contact, and please do, let's have a chat about what your needs are and how we can meet those needs, I think. And I just want to support organizations and local authorities and housing, sorry, not housing, that was my previous job, for police crime commissioners, but also through Stuart and the NRCN, doing as much policy work as we can And there is a lot of interest in terms of the government getting the rural proofing right, because that hasn't been happening really. And I've got, local MPs in rural areas are really keen to get this right. And and we're going to be doing a piece on country file in the next few months. So please
Now,
do
that is interesting. Tell us a little bit more about that, so we can keep an eye out for that. What's that?
So my Churchill report, which is a long time in the production process, let's just say. So because I spent a lot of time on RiTA, which is my main output from Churchill. They ask you to be change makers, so that's what I'm aiming to be. So the report will be published in January, just as the programme goes out, because Countryfile want to feature the work that we did. They've done over the Churchill Fellowship. So I think filming roughly December. The programme will be shown in January, but we've also done some filming with a BBC show that I believe is going out next year with Steph McGovern as well. So there's real interest in pushing this out there. So that's really positive.
Oh, that's fantastic. Will you be showcasing people's experiences? Are there going to be any real sort of experiences and like, oh, this happened to me kind of that impact?
Yes.
Yeah,
that feels really important. And again, I know Rhiannon's done a lot of filming already, and definitely Countryfile. I'm really making sure that we're rooted in that survivor voice.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. And then, of course, I'm assuming you don't know when it's going to be published yet or aired.
So the show is likely to go out in January, but we'll do a lot of publicity, and Stuart and the team at RCN as well are sort of coming on board, and we're going to do an in-person launch of the report as well. Just to say that the reason I'm working so closely with NRCN, they commissioned and supported the work that gave us Captive and Controlled, which was the first proper, I would say, research done in this country on rural domestic abuse back in 2019, when there was a lot of publicity, a lot of promises made around that time by government, by local commissioners and parliamentarians. And it didn't come off. And what I'm doing with my Churchill is very much saying that nothing's changed since then, and we're building on that report rather than replacing it. So I think that feels really important, that we'll be showcasing that Captive and Controlled report, because it's very rooted in survivor voice, and it feels like I'm really saddened that nothing has really come of it, because it was probably the most important report that we've seen and research we've seen on rural survivors for a long time. I feel like they haven't been heard.
That was interesting. Captive and Control, did that result in a video? I recall something from the National Rural Crime Network conference in March. I think did it result in a video of rural setting? I think I saw that, which was very, very sort of emotive and engaging and quite disturbing, actually, if I recall.
It was at the Willows Dawn story. That was a really important piece of work, and actually I'm a trustee of Rural Media who produced and scripted that, and they worked with Rural Action Derbyshire on that, and we are looking currently now for funding for part 2, if you like, because the impact of that video was incredible and very, very wide reaching, and we really need to build on that. So if anybody's interested in supporting to fund Rural Media to do part 2, or do another such emotive video, that I've no doubt that it's saved lives, and I no doubt that it has started some conversations that wouldn't have happened in rural communities. So that's really, really good.
Well, question in there from Eleanor, which you can see. Do you know Eleanor? Do you do?
No, I don't actually. But so about the membership section.
Yeah, question on the website, the membership section. Can this be expanded? Is something that commissioners' officers can get involved with? I'm sure the answer is absolutely.
Absolutely.
They are keen to support with rural crime with our commissioners' priorities in Lancashire, and also violence against women. So what I'll do at the end of this, I've been doing various dealings with Eleanor over the recent weeks. I will put you guys in direct contact on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I'll get Eleanor's permission. I'm sure she'll have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. But let's do that. Let's get you guys talking to see where this can go. Because you never know what's going to come out of these things. So
yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Great. I think what I'd like to. So we're on 25 minutes. I don't think we've got a few, and the numbers are going up now. So this is obviously going to be
So Judith can talk all day. That's the trouble.
Well, good. Well, you must be gone by 9 o'clock tonight, so I won't go to sleep. No, but in all seriousness, but I think what it shows there, Judith, is people are going, well, hang on, what's this all about then? Because it's not typically your rural crime action week kind of topic, so that's why there's people watching, and I know it's going to be of great interest, and it will get shared afterwards as well. So for those who may have just joined, who I can see in the corner, I don't know where you're watching or who you are currently, but again, if just like we had a moment from Eleanor from Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, feel free, if you wish to ask a question also, type it in your browser and I'll bring it on in, and then Judith can answer any sort of questions that you may have. So let's have a look at what's an ideal outcome from you? Who do you wish to be speaking to, Judith, after this has gone out and in the coming months, and the activities that you'll no doubt be doing via your website, through your LinkedIn and other social? Who do you want to be engaging with? What types of organisation?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, obviously, in terms of services and trying to improve the response to domestic abuse in rural areas, we really want to talk to and work with local authorities, with police crime commissioners, with anyone who can commission that kind of work, and recognise that maybe what they're currently doing isn't working. And there is a saying, if you carry on doing what you're doing, nothing will change. You're just going to keep doing what you're doing, and we need to sort of flip this narrative of let's just do this, and think, one of the things that came out of my sort of Churchill that I'll be talking about a lot is the need to involve the community, particularly rural communities. Like we do with, what we call buy and for services for different cultures. We need to be doing that with the rural community, because we need to, as the expression which I love is, find the tallest tree. So people within local communities, particularly rural communities, they're going to have somebody who everybody goes to or looks to for trusted advice and guidance. We want to find those tall trees and enable them to be that sort of, I guess, pathfinder for identifying when things aren't quite right. And it isn't necessarily about domestic abuse. It might be poverty, it might be child safeguarding, it might be mental health, anything, but knowing where to signpost that family, that person to. So we want to find them. But I think, we want also we want strong male voices, and I think that's the other thing that really came through loud and strong through all of my research, is violence against women and girls is never going to end unless we have the majority good men speaking out against it and challenging the normal narrative, unfortunately, around sexism, misogyny, and we need those men across those communities, the agricultural community, the just general rural communities, rural towns are a big part of what I've been looking at as well. We need male voices, and I think if we can find male business leaders, those sort of well-known men within rural communities or have connection with rural communities, I'd really want to speak to them as well, and get them on board, because we've been at this for 50 something years, and we know that domestic abuse happens to men, but we also know that it is the majority of victims are women, and certainly the majority of people who are killed are women and the majority of perpetrators are male. So we do need men to come forward, and we know that the majority of them are good. So and would not put up with this. So we need them to come forward, and we need their allyship and support. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'll talk to anybody, basically. So if anybody wants to talk to me about what's RiTA doing and support us in any way, then that would be amazing.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. There's a couple of things I want to mention. I've been making a couple of notes as you've been talking away here. So you answered my question directly. I said, who do you wish to be speaking to? You mentioned police and crime commissioners and local authorities. Well, straight away, I'm very pleased to say that one of those, Eleanor, representing Lancashire Police and Crime Commission Office, has already been onto it. So I'm very confident once we start promoting this afterwards and we put in the notes, etc., that we can tag in other crime commissioners that I actually deal with on a regular basis in my day-to-day rural crime activity. So I'll make sure that those are at least aware of what we've been discussing here today, which is something out of the ordinary to the normal rural crime conversation. Local authorities, I don't know whether we'll see any sort of traction on this particular channel. I'll be surprised if not. You never know where these things get shared to and all the rest of it. And one thing I've just made a note of here, you mentioned Churchill quite often. I'm aware of what it is, but what about other people? Let's have a quick chat about what is it and what did you do and what was the aim of that?
Okay, so Churchill Fellowship is an amazing organisation, and actually they've just opened for new applications. So if anybody is interested, once I've finished gushing about it, I know I've worked with a few people who have had Churchill Fellowships, where basically they fund you to go abroad, and this is an initiative that came out of Winston Churchill. He wanted us to go abroad, learn how other countries do things, come back and be change makers. So I've had the absolute joy of working with people like Goody Burnett, who came back and set up the whole housing approach. And I've worked with that project with Standing Together Against Domestic Abuse. And the wonderful Nicola Sharp-Jeffs as well, OBE, who started Surviving Economic Abuse, and she's been researching economic abuse, and she's an absolute expert in the field. So these women really inspired me to think, okay, right, what do I need? What do I need to do? So the rural, that Willow project, actually, the film, I was at a premiere, met an amazing survivor, and I thought, you know what, we need to be doing this. So I thought I'll just get a Churchill, hopefully, and go and do some traveling a lot across several states in America, Canada, met some incredible survivors, saw some amazing projects, met some academics, and then I did a virtual sort of travel across Australia, and again met some survivor groups, also met some amazing academics, and had lots of penny dropping moments. And it's just about what I've done this year is take that time to build RiTA, but also think about what it is that I've learned and what we need. So the recommendations, and that's all come from this Churchill Fellowship. So I guess RiTA is my, the change that I hope to see. And getting the right people on board with that is really important. But it feels so important to me. I mean, I gave up my job to do this because I just feel that it's so needed. I feel so passionately about this work. And the support has been immense. It's been fantastic. So I am excited. But it's a lot of work. There's still a lot to do and a lot to learn. And I'm looking forward to getting the Churchill report out so that people can really see what it was that I picked up. A lot of it was about we have to be creative. We can't keep thinking that we try new things and have lots of money spent on what we've been doing for years and years. One of the things, because I've worked nationally for so long, that I see is stuff happening in one area up north, and then another area down south, maybe doing some piloting on something that's similar. That has already shown real success. And we're throwing money all over the place at stuff that we're reinventing the wheel. Do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, I hope that the network that RiTA will create and the membership, the idea behind that is to bring people together to share what they're doing and the successes they're having, and enable areas not to keep reinventing the wheel and piloting, because we know what works.
Yeah, you do. I think I want to just pick up on something. I'm gonna bring your website back in, if you bear with me 1 second, because I think it's important that we we mention the. You've just been talking about the membership side of it.
That's the work in progress. That's the
exactly. You did say earlier on. So this is coming soon, and it links to what the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office from Lancashire have just commented upon. Eleanor there. Can that be expandable? Yes, it can, because it's happening now. So and there it is. So is there an indication of what's coming into the membership? Are we inviting people to join and become paid member? How's that going to work?
Well, that's the work in progress. That's what I'm trying. I'm talking to people and finding out what they want from a membership. And then, you know, one of the pieces of work I did in my previous role with Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance was set up a membership there, and there was a lot of work went into stakeholder engagement and thinking about what was needed, and you know, thinking about cost and all of that kind of thing. But also, obviously, with the benefit of having a lovely organisation with it, we had the sort of technology background, whereas this is currently myself and my non-exec director team. We need to get some, I've, you know, put in applications for seed funding and things like that to try and get whatever it is that I need platform wise to build this membership and make the best offer. And I know from what I did, you know, we had a 3-year business plan, we had a 3-year strategy for the membership, and it grew and grew and grew. And the more it grew, the more we were able to offer in terms of giving, you know, value for money effectively for that membership. So it's definitely a priority and a work in progress. But just to say, also through the Rural Crime National Rural Crime Network, Stuart already has a network of PCC offices, and I chaired the last meeting, and he wants RiTA to be very much involved in that. So it may be that Eleanor becomes involved in that, because there were only quite a few sort of areas represented, and that, so have the sort of policy and the commissioning work over here, and the RiTA membership may be, well, they could definitely be members, but also network wise it would be services, because I am aware of some really interesting pockets of funding, pockets of good obsessed money, pockets of great practice, really creative initiatives that are happening in different parts of the country. But I've happened on them accidentally, or people have come to me when they've seen this launched. And we need to celebrate that. We need to celebrate those good practice, and then other areas need to copy and take that, because this is about the survivors. It's not about police crime commissioners, kudos, or anything. It always has to be survivor focused. They have to be the reason why we do things. It's not about us. It's not about any commissioners, it's about the survivors. So let's just start talking to each other, share, and, you know, stop this postcode lottery of good practice that, you know, the survivors are living with, unfortunately.
Brilliant. Okay, so what I'd like to do, so we're on 39 minutes, I'd like to do 2 things before we close up. First of all, I want to say thank you so much, Judith, for coming on, because as soon as I saw you on LinkedIn, and then I started looking through your website, I thought, wow, there's something that, you know, that that if I can do any small part in helping that message get out, then that's something I wanted to get involved with. So I'm really pleased that you agreed to pop on today and give freely of your time to, you know, because at the end of the day, you've just hit it right. These survivors, these victims, these real trauma at the end of this. So, you know, that has to be worth giving time and spreading that message. So thank you so much for coming on. As always, on these little talks that I do, it's not about me, so I'm going to say, is there anything else that you wish to focus on or mention before I pull you out of shot and do my little wash up? The floor is yours for the final word. Well, almost the final word, because I'm going to come back to that.
I mean, that's just a big mistake giving me. All I will say is please do contact me. And you know, I'm really happy to talk about any ideas or like I say, about what you'd like from RiTA membership, and also just to keep an eye on the website and our LinkedIn posts. One of the things we're going to be doing is a page with letters, Dear RiTA, and that will be coming soon. And that is a way of trying to reach survivor voice. We want survivors to write to RiTA and say, this is my experience, and this is what was good, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, because that's how we're going to learn. And I want sort of a safe place for survivors to share their story. My mum was a prolific letter writer, and so letters, I feel, are a really important way of people being able to talk about how they feel, and I think that's one way forward. Oh, we've got another question.
Becky's just Becky, thank you so much, Becky, for engaging and popping your question in. Thanks to both for highlighting this crime in rural areas. Well, thanks to Judith. Very important, and we know we need to do more. Do we have any evaluations published or that you would be willing to share with myself?
So there hasn't. Do you know, one of the big things is, Becky, is that we don't currently disaggregate our data on. So we've got figures on how many people are experiencing domestic abuse. Again, that they're basically only people who are contacting the police, and we know that that's a minority of victim survivors. But it's not disaggregated well enough to help us understand what rurality. So that's one of my asks of the government going forward, is to disaggregate that data. But and the evaluations of small programs, again, lack of funding, I think, kind of tells us that there just isn't enough funding to do these kind of evaluations. What I will be having on our website is a page. I want to sort of like a library, pull together a lot of international, and there isn't much national research. There's research in Scotland, Northern Ireland, little bits and bobs, and I'll pull it all together so that people do have that. But going forward, that is definitely something that we need to be doing much more. We need measurement of success, and we need to be able to share that, because we know that commissioners want that data. I'm going to be encouraging qualitative evaluations over numbers, because that's why we're in this sort of problem with fairer funding. Is funding tends to go on population size, and that's kind of missing the point, that the additional, so a domestic abuse service in a rural area needs more money than an urban area, because they have to travel. In the old days, when I was working frontline, I would be driving to people's homes even, but certainly to their towns and their villages, and be meeting in a safe place. We used to go for walks. Services are not funded for that level of time. The you know, travel expenses, they're just not funded like they used to be. So everybody, victim survivors, are expected to come to that central area. So for here, it might be they're expected to come into Hereford, and we need to change that. We need to change that.
Great. Super. Okay. So in closing then, first of all, to say thank you to the people for what we've still got people, we've got quite a number of people still watching, which for my channel is really unusual. Thanks, Judith.
It's Friday. They've got nothing else to do.
But seriously, for those of you still watching, thank you so much. It's really, really appreciated. And I'll do the show notes and a wash up, and I'll put various links on the YouTube channel descriptor with links to various organizations. I want to say a huge thank you to Eleanor and to Becky for engaging, and everyone else who's watching, and anyone who continues to watch. What I would say, if you are watching now or you're watching later on YouTube or indeed on LinkedIn, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's a relatively new initiative of mine. I'm delighted to have people like yourself on, Judith, to come and talk about real key issues that affect huge amounts of the population. So I'm really appreciative, and
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. It's been a fascinating topic, and I'm so glad that we've had the opportunity to discuss it out in the open and get engagement as well from other people. Al, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Judith, I'm going to put you out of shot now, but please don't disappear. No one else will be able to see you. I'll still see you in the corner, but I'll put you out of shot as I do a quick wash up. Thank you, Judith, and we'll see you in a moment. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Really, really appreciated it. I found that a fascinating talk. That's a topic that really piqued my interest. I didn't realize until I came across Judith's work and the RiTA website that this was a big rural crime issue. So there's a silent group out there being abused, potentially victimized, suffering in silence in remoteness across the UK countryside. So the more voice that we can help spread, RiTA and Judith, to, in my small way, I'm so grateful to be allowed to get involved and have the discussion. I found it really interesting. I know others will find it equally interesting. All I would ask, though, if you're happy to do so, please subscribe to the channel. We're going to have lots more interviews coming up shortly. I'm going to put links to the RiTA website. I'm going to put links to Judith's LinkedIn profile. Do reach out, do connect. And let's not forget what she specifically mentioned at the end there. She's very keen to talk to police and crime commissioners, and we want to say thank you to the Lancs for popping on, Lancashire Rural Police and Crime Commissioner's Office for popping on and interacting and asking questions. Thank you so much. That was really, really appreciated. And of course, if you're part of a local authority, then Judith's equally keen to talk to you. But I want to close with one other thing. The RiTA is not a charity. It's a CIC, it's a community interest group, but it's not a charity. And the work that Judith does has to be paid for, has to be funded. So, do consider that, if you're engaging that for consultancy work, just like all of us, we all sort of need to be paid along the way. But hey, listen, that has been fascinating. I've really enjoyed that discussion. Judith, thank you so much. Everyone else, thanks for